but I ended up with her. And then we lived there then, and then we built a new house. And when I was building houses, I built the first parade of homes in Waterloo, and out on Orchard Street here south of Ridgeway, and built my first new house in 1957. So we lived there then until Wendell Lockhart called me one day when 1983, when John Deere's laid off all these people, and he says, I want to be a satellite business in Tucson. He said, would you be interested in going out there as my general superintendent? I said, you betcha. That was August the 19th. September the 19th, I was in Tucson. Lynette was still here, but then she got everything all ready and she sold the house. And I came back on Thanksgiving and loaded a U-Haul, and out there we went to Arizona for 5 years. And then while I was in Arizona, as a general superintendent, I built a 46,000 square foot school, and I built a post office, the new 26,000 square foot post office in Green Valley, and I built a Baptist church. I remodeled a church of Latter-day Saints. I built, Wendell always had a line of skating rinks, roller skating rinks. And so I built a new one there, and the old one we'd made into a place where, you know, the sports arena type deal. And I built a E.F. Hutton Plaza, and that was the most interesting thing. We built the thing, and I was up on the second floor. And, you know, the shuttle that went, the first one that they had, landed at, they couldn't land at Kennedy, so they landed out there in California. And I was up on the second floor, and we had what they call Hambro joists, and I was showing these guys how to line it all up and everything. And I stood up and I looked, and here's this plane flying right over, and that shuttle is on. Now that's the first shuttle, first time that came through, and I saw that.
Oh, wow.
So, and I even saw it on TV, the last one that went out, see. But yeah, it's, my life has just been, no way that I can even, that I would ever change it.
Yeah. How did the military impact it? Do you think it had an impact on your life? Or?
Oh, sure, you bet your life. Yeah, I mean, you learn discipline, and there's not enough of that right now. And that's the one thing, and that I feel was the most, you know, the best thing for you. And but it did have you. You had goal. I mean, I'm going to do this right, you know, and that's all my life. And I refused to do anything that a bad deal. I was always, and I used to build nice big houses here in Waterloo. I don't know if you ever remember, what was her name? She used to be with the Courier, and Don was her husband's name, Don, and she used to be a writer for them. In fact, 1964, we had things died down, and I looked at the newspaper and found out that Erickson Holiday out of Minneapolis was looking for somebody to build some stations. So I didn't wait. That was on Sunday. I didn't wait till Monday morning to go to see him. I called the guy at his house, so I got the job. And the next day, and I built stations in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and North and South Dakota and Nebraska. And I had 3 of them going in Iowa and Nebraska at the same time. But then I was promoted and sent to the office as a purchasing agent for him. And Art Erickson said to me one day, he says, Don, he said, do you think you're going to move up here? And I said, well, we had 8 children, Nancy. I said, I just can't do it with 8 kids. I said, it's too much to try and to do with it. I said, and still pay attention to what I'm doing. He says, I appreciate that. And he says, Don, he says, whenever you need a job, he says, you always have one here. So then I went on home, and it happened to be that a real estate gal that was here And I run across her, and she says, I said I want to go into building houses. Oh, she wanted somebody. She was looking for a contractor, and so then I started building these here big houses and over on Sheridan and all around through there. See, so I had and then I built so many 12 plexes, 8 plexes, and everything you can imagine in this town. And but I've had quite a like I said before, I didn't. I was always farmed out on a farm, and I didn't get to go to school, go to high school. Couldn't finish high school, so in fact they couldn't afford it. And so I got my GED when I was 68 years old. Our daughter Beth used to teach it here, and so one day we come in and, well, in fact, this was in 1993. We bought a motorhome. We sold our house and everything. We bought this motorhome, and we traveled for 11 and a half years, and went to all the kids are scattered all over the United States. And so we come back here, and she says, Dad, she said, I teach GED. Says, I'm going to bring home a test and have you try and see what you need. So the sample test. So I took the sample test. She says, well, why don't you come back with me on Monday to work? So I went over there, and so they gave me 3 tests, and I went back Tuesday and took the others, and I passed it and didn't have to do anything. and I graduated with cap and gown out of West High.
Oh, how neat.
So it was quite a deal. I've had the most interesting life that any person could ever have.
Certainly have.
Yeah.
Certainly have.
You know, my ancestors that came to St. Donatus and they farmed around there. When Grandpa, which is Dad's dad, he went to school in Dubuque, college in Dubuque, Loris College, and then he got out and he got married, and they were farming too. And then the migration set in to go to Orleans, Nebraska. Well, he got he put the cows and the horses and the machinery and all his household goods and everything into the boxcar, and then he and his new little bride, they sat in that boxcar and went all the way to Orleans with it. And the funny thing is Dad's youngest sister, she was let's see, she was 7 years older than we were, and she had gotten married, but she had went 3 husbands, all died of cancer, but she had children by him, you know. Well, now they own 4,000 acres all the way around Orleans, and they could shut all the roads off, and they'd own the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
So, but anyhow, she's the only one. I don't know if she's still living. Now, if she isn't, then I'm the oldest one of the batch, the whole thing now, right now, on both sides. My aunt on my mother's side, Rose, she just passed away here 2 months ago, or 3, something like that. And she was 1 month of being 100.
Oh my gosh. Now you said your mom's family came by covered wagon, or
No,
okay.
she could.
She could.
Yeah,
Okay,
she was that
could.
type of person.
She was a pioneer woman.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course they're Luxembourg on that side. I'm still all Luxembourg, that country of Luxembourg. In 1991, I was in Connecticut with helping a son out there, our son Paul, and in fact, David and John, we were all out there working for him, and we got there, and he is it running out?
Yeah.
And so he.
You were in Connecticut helping Paul.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just trying to see how I come to something, but I can't. I slipped in one of those chuck holes.
You were all Luxembourg.
Right. And they're builders
Okay.
in Luxembourg. So, well, here's how it's coming about. We were finishing these big houses. The smallest house we trimmed out was 8,000 square feet
Oh my gosh.
in Greenwich, Connecticut. The largest house was
Oh
37,000
my
square
goodness.
feet. And it was owned by a young couple. They were 37, each one were 37 years old. And the lots that those houses were built on were $1 million. There were 10 acres for each one. And but he bought two because he didn't want people moving up that close to him. And so he had two lots and built this huge house on it. See, on that. Also, Ron Howard.
The
You-
actor?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Paul does all of his stuff. And we started out first. He wanted a desk built, and of course they give the price, and then they get like say half of it to begin with, so they can start
Sure.
getting the materials. Ron Howard doesn't do that, so he orders it. And so Paul is waiting and waiting, and all of a sudden, here comes a check in the mail for the full amount, and he's done all of that. And his wife had a business called Monkeys and Clowns. And I worked in that, putting in new cabinets and all that stuff in her place in there. And, but these are just, these are things like those kind of houses that we trimmed out. I used to see in magazines and on TV, you know, and see them on the old movies and everything. How I'd love to work in that kind of trim work. Well, that's the kind of stuff we worked in. Yep, it was just amazing. Oh, then it was my day. This one day, it's my day to go buy the sandwiches. So I went and got it, and I picked up the newspaper that was there, and bought that, and came over, and we were sitting there eating, and I opened on the front page of the paper, and I was looking down, scanned down. Well, on the lower half, on the left-hand side, all the way at the bottom, was this a little item there, and it says round-trip airfare, Icelandic Airways from. Airport in Washington, New York, and Kennedy, and it says for $369 round trip per person, and if you go with two persons, you got a free car for a week. So I called my youngest brother, and so he said, "Yep, they would go." So then we went, and we were there for 2 weeks, and had the car for 2 weeks. Travel. We went in 8 countries and 2,200 miles, and
How fun.
yeah, and it was just amazing. We and then I used to be with when I built houses and all that. I used to buy. I was a dealer for cabinets, for IXL cabinets, and all different kinds of appliances and stuff out of Des Moines, and they would give points. Well, the first trip we got was a free. It was to go to Spain. So Lynette and I went to Spain. But before we left, she says, "Don," she says, "I think we ought to take the money and save the money." And I said, "Well," I says, "I'll tell you what, I'll tell you how it is when I get back." She- so she went, and we went to Tangiers and all that. And then the next time we went, we were supposed to go to Cancun. And something happened, they closed her up and they wouldn't let anything. So they wanted to go back to Spain. Well, I didn't want to go because I'd been there. And so I called her up and I said, "There's a cruise coming out of Des Moines." I says, and it goes down to, you fly down to San Juan, Puerto Rico. And I said, "I'd like to take that." She said, "Okay." So she sent me the money, and we flew down there, and then we took the Canard Adventure and went all the way to Caracas, Venezuela. Then there's 5 islands back, and but it cost me $39. I didn't have enough points. And then Lynette learned how to scuba dive oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the town anymore. But whenever we got off, like you got off at St. Lucia, the whitest sand you ever saw in your life. And there was a guy there, and he had the only American car on the island, and it was a Buick. And so another guy that was with me, he says, "Why don't you find out and see what it cost?" So I did, and he said, $20 for all day. You had him all day.
Mm-hmm.
So we went ahead, and so then we went down to the beach, and I wanted him to go ahead. And I said, why don't you go ahead and do whatever you want to do? And I said, come back and get it. Nope. He said, you paid for it, so it's yours.
Uh-huh.
And so then we had that. And then when we got back to San Juan, Puerto Rico, we were up at the fort, and I looked down and I saw the Navy ships down there just had come in. USS Albany had just come in. And so I said to Lynette, I said, let's go down and see if we can get aboard ship. So we walked down there and everything. Whoa, we got off at the airport, and they wanted $16 to go from the airport, from the ship to the airport. And so there was a city bus out there. So I said, walked over and we checked at the city bus. And the guy that was with me says, I think he says it's a quarter. So we did. We spent the quarter, got on the bus, and he took us all over. And then you can get off any place you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Get back on, didn't cost you any more. We were at the fort, looked down there, and I said, let's go down. So we went down, got down there, and just as the big stairs going up to the top to the ship, there was two young Navy guys come down there, and I said, hey, he says, is there any way a guy can get aboard ship? Well, he says, yes. He says, I sure can. So he runs back up the stairs, and the officer of the day, and you have to ask him about it, and so he stepped up there and waved us, and we went up, and they took us through this ship. And then we went back, got on our later on, I got on the bus and went down through all kinds of places, downtown and all that, ended up at the airport for 25 cents.
What a great trip.
Yeah, and then,
And very accommodating of the Navy.
oh yeah, it was really neat to go up there and see that. That was where they had they fired first missiles off of and it burnt all the paint off of the front of the ship, and they had to come in there and paint it up again.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it was amazing,